All right. Awesome. Thanks, Matt. All right. Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? Muggy, is it muggy out there still? You would think it's June, right? June bloom, but it's July, right in the cusp of summer. So thank you again for being part of the team meeting. So let's go ahead and get started. Next slide, please. All right, you know how we do it here at South Bay. Our mission to provide agents with a place where they will be empowered, trained, motivated to experience growth, wealth, and a legacy that allows them to live their best life possible. Our belief: when the values of your own company align with your own beliefs, you know you found your professional home. And our vision: to achieve amazing professionals and personal development so that KW South Bay remains the office of stories. Awesome. Give yourselves a round of applause, guys. You guys are awesome. All right. Come on in. Come on in. Please. You don't buy it. Okay. All right, next slide, please. We want to bring our food sponsor. Let's give it a round of applause. Valley National Home. Hey, welcome. How are you? Thanks for being here.
Hi, everybody. Hello. Everyone having a good today's Wednesday?
Yeah.
A little warm outside. So I wanted to talk a little differently today about Fidelity National as a company. And what I wanted to tell you is they have really, over the last couple of years, put a lot of money into hiring more people for customer service to service both you and your clients. And it's kind of has been talked about in the past that, oh gosh, home warranty, they never pay anything. They don't cover anything. Well, I'm going to tell you that's absolutely not true. Fidelity put out last 2 years, $300 million in payments to clients, saving your clients a lot of money. So that's wonderful for you because you know your clients are taken care of. Now, whenever you call Susie or myself, we will bend over backwards to make sure that you're taken care of and your clients are taken care of. We will pull all the strings needed to ensure that you're happy. Now, can we do everything? Absolutely, we cannot. We cannot do everything, but what we can do, nobody else could do the way that we do. So having that backed by Fidelity is a huge relief for you because it's a Fortune 300 company. So you know that we're going to be backed by, some very, very financially solid company. I don't think I said that very well, but what I wanted to just quickly tell you is customer service internally is really important, but what I want to do to set myself apart from you do have choices of vendors that you can work with. What I love to do is talk to your clients for you. So you put an offer in on a home for your buyers, you get into escrow, and it's time to talk about the home warranty. Why don't you call me and have me call your clients for you? I will explain everything from warranty to them so they know exactly what to expect when escrow closes, exactly who to call when escrow closes, everything they need to know, and exactly how a home warranty works. And I'm going to be honest with them. And they love that. I appreciate the honesty and it only takes a few minutes for me to talk to them. And I love talking to your clients because I miss my days as a realtor when I just talk to clients all the time. And so I love that opportunity. So take advantage of the customer service that Fidelity provides and that Susie and I can also provide to take some of the weight off of you. What that means to you is more time to focus on selling and getting out there and let us help you with your clients. Okay, is there any questions at all? It's a little different than talk because I was talking more about instead of just the warranty, more of the customer service part. So just utilize us.
Awesome.
Yes,
Thank you. Let's give a round of applause. Hope you sing me a play test. All right, now let's go with the next slide, please. All right, is Christopher on the call?
I am.
Hello.
Awesome. Nat, if you can do share screening too, I believe he has a presentation as well. Thank you so much. Awesome. Good to see, or actually good to hear you. It was
Thank
nice
you
seeing
very
you
much.
last week, my friend.
Yeah, it was great seeing you too last week at Bold. And thank you for the opportunity to talk to your agents today. I know that training is important. So today we're going to do some prospecting training.
Yes. Who wants to know how to prospect and generate opportunities? All of us would be raising our hands. All right, take it away, sir.
I do have a little PowerPoint, Simon, if you can give me the screen sharing rights.
Yeah, Natalie can help you with that. Nat, if you can give them
And I will have about 10 minutes, right? Is that correct?
yeah, 10 to 15 minutes.
All right. Forgive me for going fast because I have a lot of information from you, but I want to make sure you can get this in 15 minutes. So take notes, screenshots, whatever you need to do. Okay. Natalie, can you give me the sharing rights? Christoph Malzel.
Let me see if Nat. Try now.
Okay, not yet. I'm
Okay.
keep on trying.
Let me see if I can do this. 1 second.
Okay. But while he's doing this, I do a quick introduction. So my name is Christoph Malzel. I'm with LandVoice. LandVoice is a top data provider in the industry for 30 years already when it comes to seller leads. So today we're gonna show you how our clients actually get more listings. And I'm gonna start with a story of Lee Jennings. You see him here on the screen. So Lee just texted me or called me actually a couple of weeks ago. Then he texted me again. He got 10 listings in the last 45 days and he moved into a new area with no past clients, no sphere of influence. And how in the world is somebody getting so many listings, right? So I actually know that he has been a client for many years. So I asked him, what did you do? And he said, Christoph, I focused on daily expireds because they are need sellers. They have to sell. Okay, so yes, we can focus on those who want to sell, but that's a long game right now. Those who need to sell and have to sell, those are instant, immediate listings this summer, right? Because they have no choice, even in a time when interest rates are not lowered yet, they still want to sell. So I'm going to do in my next 15 minutes, 2 types of training. One is how can you get listings, just like Lee got a lot of listings, and then how can you turn a listing into another one? There's a simple way to do that. So the easiest lead source right now out there, without question in my mind, is daily expireds, especially in your MLS, in the CR MLS, you have 1,400 expireds and 2,600 cancels. That's over 4,000 leads, people who are definitely in the market of selling. They want to sell a house, they want to pay commission, so the ideal lead source. There's only one problem, and that is you will not be the only agent going after expireds. You can find yourself in a red ocean. And what do we call a red ocean in prospecting? It is you do the same thing that everybody else is doing at the same time that everybody else is doing. It's like swimming with the sharks, right? And it is a bloodbath, and it's not enjoyable. Rather, you want to be in a blue ocean. And Lee Jennings, I shared his testimonial, he could never have gotten 10 listings if he would have tried to compete with everybody else. So what he did and what you can do with expireds is understanding that you have to be the first agent to reach out to them. You don't have the luxury to wait until the afternoon to call one if you want to get the listing, because the first agent has the best chance to get that appointment for listings. Now, we already talked about how many you have. How much time would it take you to get all the phone numbers and the right contact information and the absentee owner lookup and scrubbed against the do not call registry for over 4,000 expireds and cancels? A lot, right? I mean, that's more than a week of full-time work. Now, what if you want to just find 15 in a day? It is still a lot of work, maybe an hour. So instead of doing that and always getting behind, you can simply get Land Voice, click on our expired platform, and you will see all the phone numbers scrubbed against the do not call registry and the daily status in the MLS and even the absentee owner lookup. It's beautiful. I tell you, it makes a difference between night and day how your day goes. If you spend the first hour calling on motivated sellers and knowing that you're first in calling them. Okay, so I always thought by price. Our filter allows you that, so you can talk to the multi-million-dollar properties first before you talk to the other ones. Now, the first of the month is the biggest expired day of the entire month. We have about 3 times as many expireds in the CR MLS every time on the first. You can count on that. On the 1st of August, you should be setting 3 times as many appointments, listing appointments, than in any other day of the month. Now, make sure you're always the first to contact, and you will avoid the competition almost altogether. And you will have a beautiful conversation with that expired. You feel like you're in a blue ocean. Okay, that's what we want to happen for you. Now, when you talk to them, don't try to sell yourself. Don't talk about yourself, but lead with value. We will have all the scripts for you. I'm just going to fly through that really quick. Basically, we tell them, hey, record a voicemail on your cell phone, inform every homeowner that everybody who calls that your listing expired. Tell them that they're not on the DNC. They should put the number on the DNC. Provide real value to help them get their privacy before you ask for a listing appointment. And then when you ask for the appointment, make sure you don't call it a listing appointment. That sounds very confrontational. It sounds like you have to sign something. They're not ready for that. Rather call it a side-by-side analysis that outlines what you would do better than the agent who let the listing expire. It's easy to do that. It's basically your listing presentation plus compare the photos of the previous listing to what you can do. Is there a better way that you can describe the property? Can you do a drone video if there was not one done? Can you provide a call capture recording? Can you do a virtual tour? Of course you can. And that's what you want to put in your side-by-side analysis. And you simply say this: I worked really hard on this side-by-side analysis. I'd love you to have it and see what I think went wrong with the previous listing. Can I drop it off this afternoon, or would this evening work better for you? If you do this regularly, you should be setting regular listing appointments. Now, the other lead source I want you to pay attention to is for sale by owners. Historically, they have always been a little bit low in your area. Right now, we see an influx of for sale by owners. Why is that? That is because a lot of people are hurting financially and they want to save every dollar they can. So they try to sell on their own first. But when agents try to call them and reach out to them because they know that eventually they'll list with an agent, they make the mistake of doing too much research. And again, you get behind. You have this nice excuse of appearing busy, but all you're doing is just doing double work that could already be done for you. So there's a much easier way. You can simply log into LandVoice and all the for sale by owners will be populated in your platform with the phone numbers, their ad, and all the information about them. You can even do notes and tags, and it's scrubbed against the MLS with a daily status update. So you don't need to go back and forth. I hope you can see how this saves you so much time and gets you ahead of the fishbowl first. We even give you the ad. So I want to do something for free for you. So that's why I asked you to take out your phone or write something down. Why don't you text me your top 2 counties that you prospect in, and I do a free for sale by owner lookup for you. I'll let you know exactly how many for sale by owners you have in your area in the last 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, even up to 1 year back. And those who still haven't sold their home, they're even hotter, right? The older they get, like fine wine, the better they get. So make sure you let me know what your counties are, so I let you know how many FSBOs you have. A fact about FSBOs you have to write down is 86% end up listing with an agent within the first 3 weeks. So it's important that you have the same script, the right script that is not confrontational, that adds value, and I will give you those scripts as well when you reach out to me. A niche opportunity that opened up for you, thanks to COVID actually, is pre-foreclosures. We give you all the pre-foreclosure leads every single day, again, with the same information like everything else. You have the phone numbers, you don't need to worry about that, all the cell phone numbers with an 80% accuracy, all the statuses, even those are active on the MLS, are indicated, and you can simply call on them and invite them to talk to you if they want to know how much the home is worth. I always pull them up on my phone because it's so much easier to dial without a mistake, and it's quick, just like a dialer, and it's one by one, it's completely compliant. And then you afterwards, you can take notes, you can create tags, so you can see how easy it is to use LandVoice. Now, I want to let you know how many pre-foreclosures you have in your top 2 counties. Actually, you can even let me know your zip codes. Text them to me to 801-227-9909, and I'll let you know how many you had in the last 30 days, 60 days, and 90 days. That is, in my opinion, not optional information. You should know that as a data expert in your area, so you know who you should be reaching out to. Now, what do you say to a pre-foreclosure? Do you tell them that they're on a pre-foreclosure list? Of course not. That's how you tick them off. That's how you lose them really fast. And they may be in denial, or they may be telling you, I don't even know you. Please take me off your list. So don't say, I saw your home is going into foreclosure, or I have my list here in front of me and you are on there of missing mortgages, right? Don't do that. Instead, use the script that works really well in the industry right now. It's a neighborhood search script. That's for pre-foreclosures. I'm calling everybody in the neighborhood right now because home prices are up. And I was just wondering, if you were offered the right price for your home, would you be willing to sell? And you know what they want to know? They want to know 2 things. How much is my home worth right now, realistically? Can it be sold? And how much equity do I have? So they can make a call to the bank, and the next call they would make is to a real estate agent, but you beat them to that because you call them on the day they get the NOD in the mail, or even a couple of days before, because that's how early we give you our information. We train you, we give you all the scripts, like I said earlier. Down here is a website where you can download all our resources and scripts for free. landvoice.com/free downloads. I just want to make sure you have that at no cost. Then the last part of my presentation, I have a couple minutes left, is geo-farming. This is exactly how you turn a listing that you or your competition has into another one. Why is that? Because there's a phenomenon called listings have babies. They come out of the same neighborhood where the listing is, or they're just sold. You want to invite the neighbors to an open house. You want to send them a postcard and let them know, there's this house sold, or there's an open house, or there's just something that's coming up on the market, just announcing it. Why is that important? Because many of them are looking for a house in the neighborhood, or they want to sell a home because they have a similar home like that, and they get motivated by the other real estate activity in that area. And for that, for the data for the neighbors, we have a neighborhood search tool that we give you. And you may say, well, you know what? I have been in business for 20 years. I have all the neighbors' data. Well, I guarantee you that data changes every day. All right. So you can run your entire database if you want through LandVoice and update it, get the right numbers. We even find email addresses now. We indicate if it's a cell phone or not, and all the information about the house will be there. The very important part is that you know that you can get up to 3,000 monthly search results from your neighbors. 3,000, that's 9,000 in a quarter. So that's how powerful you can be having LandVoice. You will never be the second agent. You will be the one who knows, who has the data. So when you select a new neighborhood, just a little tip here, select a neighborhood that has at least a 5% turnover rate. It's easy to find in your MLS, which one that is. And make sure you start with 500 homes. I wouldn't even do more, because, a 5% of 500 is 30. So you're actually talking now, or have potential to get 30 listings out of this small neighborhood in a year, because that's what will happen in a 5% turnover rate neighborhood. And you can be that agent that brands himself. So the big question is, how much does it all cost? And does it all work together? And the answer to the second question is, everything works together. All the leads that you get is all in one platform. You don't need to worry about does it integrate. It's all in one platform. You get your expires, your for sale by owners, your pre-foreclosures, and your neighborhood search all in one bundle. We call that the Pro bundle. On our website, it's $14.97. That's the lowest price you will find anywhere. Our next closest competitor charges $2,800 a year for that. And another one charges $3,200 a year. So you're getting a big deal from LandVoice. And that's a team meeting special that I'm going to give you right now, because I'm going to take $500 off today of that already lower price. And you get it for only $9.97. Okay, for the first 7 who sign up today, I do another bonus for you. And I want to stop just with the first discount. I'm going to give you additional 2 counties for free. And by the way, you're grandfathered into that price. It does not go up next year or the next rollover. So now by giving you 2 additional counties, instead of paying $16.97, you still pay only $9.97 a day. If you a year, if you divide that by 365, that's less than $3 a day. So the question shouldn't be, can I afford to do this? $9.97, but can I afford not to do this? It just makes so much sense, especially since we have the best accuracy in the industry. There's no competitor that has better accuracy, and we have by far the lowest price. So we want to save you that money. Simply text me if you want to be one of those 7. Text the word PRO to 801-227-9909. It also would be helpful if you text at least your first or last name, so I know I can separate it and know who signed up or who wants to sign up, so I can count those 7 for you. All right. If you want to rather do a quarterly option, and that is almost the end of the presentation here, normally that's $467 a quarter. I will take $192 off and give it to you for only $275 a quarter. Okay, we have a competitor, they charge $300 a month. You can pay less for that in a quarter. Okay, again, text PRO to my number 801-227-9909, or visit, if you want to sign up directly online, landvoice.com/special pro. I just put this website up for you, and I will leave it up until we have the 7, until the end of the day, probably. Okay, we also would like to do more training for you. If you want to let us know what kind of topics you would like to hear, where we have maybe a little bit more time and we go more into scripting, that is definitely a possibility. Go to landvoicetraining.com/survey. You can let us know how we did today and what you would like to hear in the future. So here's again a screen with my number and my name and that website. I would love to hear from all of you and help you out. I have the rest of the day actually to respond to all your text messages. So thank you very much, Simon, for giving me the chance to talk to your team today.
Wonderful, Prasad. Thank you so much. Let's give him a round of applause. So the information that he's providing, the Pro Bundle package, and it's not a yearly subscription, right? They can cancel at any time.
Well, yeah, I mean, with a yearly subscription, they can cancel before the next rollover next year. If you really want to be worried about a 1-year commitment, you could do a quarterly, and then you just have a commitment for 3 months, and then you can cancel after that. But most of our clients, if they get 1 or 2 listings right away in that quarter, they want to stay with us, of course. So that's our expectation for you.
Wonderful.
I have a question there, actually. May I answer that really quick? How is it different from Vulcan 7 or Mojo Dialer? We actually don't do a dialer. Okay, we provide the data, not a dialer. If you want to use a dialer, we're integrated with Mojo. You can keep on using them. Our data populates automatically in there. However, I would even save that $100 a month that the dialer costs you, because I pull it up on my mobile platform, LandVoice, and I just tap the number and it dials it accurately. And then I can take a note, I create a tag, I can cross out the number, and that information will stay with that lead forever. And then I dial the next one. It's each dial is initiated individually, and that's a legal and compliant way, and in my opinion, a more intentional way to reach your leads. I hope that answers the question about the dialer.
Thank you, Prasad. All right. Any other questions? All right, well, let's continue. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Okay. All right, Nat, let's continue. Next slide, please. All right, any listing pitches, buyer needs and wants? Any coming soon? Katrina usually has something brewing.
Listing something up.
Yeah, please come up to the front.
Some of them are gonna take a while, but one of the ones that are coming up, over in San Diego, like a 4-bedroom bath.
Okay.
2,200 square feet. We just remodeled the kitchen.
Hey, Simon, we accidentally muted you.
I've been doing, and,
So what you say, the listing that you got was from picking up the phone and calling.
yeah, but it wasn't actually phone calls, it was actually like referrals. I was calling my sphere and just running for it, you know, family, occupation, recreation, dreams.
Yeah.
And, when a guy's like, hey, like, you know, I want to, I actually have a friend, like, who doesn't sell, let me introduce you. A couple minutes later, like, I'll send her a text. Met him first day and got the listing sign stuff.
Beautiful. Awesome. That's awesome. Anyone else? All right, yes, Steve.
I have a listing in North Barnes coming up in about a week. 3 bedrooms, 3 bath, family room, real nice condition. List price probably be $1,249,000, remodeled. So hit me up in about a week and a half. About 2,000. No pool. I'll check my old house just a few blocks away.
Okay, we got a big pool out at just go west, about 5 miles. You got a really big. Yeah.
My old home on Cerise have a pool. Yeah.
Also, we have a lease next week.
Okay.
It's a 3-bed, 2-bath, super huge home. It's got one of those separated dining areas, and it is like old school Lamert Park, Los Angeles, with, you know, the streets with all the trees that, you know, the palm trees and stuff. We did a ADU with a bath on that as well, so it's coming on market. I want to say Tuesday, Wednesday of next week. We're gonna have a house all weekend, right? And then I am in search of a full house, Steve, with house. Fixed are okay. We've been looking for a while for these clients, and North Florence is a little trendy too. And then we have a significant escrow closing in about a week or so. So we got a call from a KW agent out, and I want to say like Moore Park sort of area. Found me on like the KW site, and she's kind of opening up her business a little bit, and so she sent over a referral for one of her coworkers that work in the with her. And so this family is super cool. So they moved from Thailand 20 years ago. And 20 years ago, they moved into a 2-bedroom apartment in Bellflower. And then daughter got all of her degrees, started working, rose up in her employment, and she started looking for a house about 5 years ago. Didn't work out. They got back in 2 years ago. Wrote thousands of offers, never worked out. They got into escrow with us after leaving us 3 weeks. And so this would be their first house in America after 20 years. And we're gonna do a little party.
Awesome. Thank you, Katrina. All right, anyone else? You have great stories, but you also have war stories. We've been in the trenches of those too. No. All right, Nat, let's go ahead and continue. Next slide, please. Okay, Nat, do I have a capability to share my screen? All right, ladies and gentlemen, so there's been some changes for the month of July. So bear with me here momentarily. Yeah. Well, I'll go ahead and leave this up for now, but some of the July 2024 form release, remember there was June release, right? And then some of the forms that we thought were going to be released in the month of June got postponed because the Department of Justice stepped in and said, stop. They're still not in alignment when it comes to the compensation agreements, okay? So a lot of the listing agreements and anything that was related to compensation was taken out and postponed. Okay, well, we're now in the month of July and we have new releases, but some of the forms still are postponed till August 17th. I want you to write this down, jot it down, put a reminder that right now, August 17th is when the changes will be in effect. That also includes when all agents working with buyers must include a buyer representation agreement. Okay. August 17th. Now, with that being said, it's subject to change. Okay. I'm only giving you what I've seen so far in speaking with other brokers, what I've seen right now through CAR. But it's subject to change. But I want you to jot that date because that's when all full form release will be in effect. All of the new listing agreements. Remember the old listing agreement that has the total commission and then the cooperating compensation to any buyer agent. It's eliminated. Now the listing agreements have a grid. And on that grid, there's 5 tiers to how a seller can pay compensation to a cooperating broker. Now the seller does not have to pay a buyer commission. This is the reason we have the buyer representation agreement that clearly states, right, that you have a representation agreement between the buyer and yourself as an agency relationship, but it also has a beginning and an expiration date, and what are the terms of those agreements. Also, it has a section for compensation. Okay, what is the compensation? Well, commissions are negotiable. They've always been negotiable. It's what you want to charge that client. What is the standard practice, right? Because that's one of the questions. Well, standard practice is whatever you agree to, right? But the standard is anywhere from 2.5% to 3%. Has always been the standard practice of what I've seen in my 27 years of doing real estate. For the new generation of agents that have started or got their real estate license recently, you don't know what the standard practice is, right? So it's something that you are comfortable working with in case the seller does not pay a commission. Come August 17, and again, it's subject to change, the MLS is going to remove the BAC section. Okay, the commission agreement. Most of us will look at the picture and immediately go all the way down. What are they paying as a commission? Right? That's going to be removed. You're not going to know the commission. Now, CRMLS did in May provide a concession section on the MLS, and it's available right now as we speak. That concession says the following, and it's 3 parts. Concession is the seller willing to pay concession, yes or no? Part 2, what is that concession? Is a percentage or a flat fee? Part 3, What is that amount? Is it 2.5 or is it $10,000? So that information is going to be there. Concession, not commission. Now, what is concession? Concessions can be money to give to the buyer for closing costs. Concessions can be, in lieu of repairs, we're going to give credit to the buyer. Concessions mean part of that, if not all, can go towards my buyer agent's obligation to pay compensation. That's concessions. So be very, very careful. Because now concessions is going to be a negotiating tool. This is why you need to sharpen your irons and really dive deep on your skill sets and how you articulate the conversation with the buyer. Because the paperwork clearly says commission or compensation is paid when we execute and close a successful transaction. The question here is, who's going to be responsible to pay you a commission? Is it going to be the seller or is it going to be the buyer? Or a combination of both? Hold that thought for a minute there. Hold that thought. Okay. The listing agreement that will be in effect, as I stated, has options. Option 1, not give any concession. I'm only giving you the listing agent. This is how it all started, folks. This is how it all began with the NAR settlement and real estate companies settling, because the sellers question, why am I paying a buyer's agent that doesn't represent me a commission? Now, we all know that is not the case. We shared our commission. We negotiated the terms with the seller, and we offset some of that money towards the buyer that brings a ready, willing, and able buyer, right? And to finish the deal, close it out. But in the eyes, we're different. And this is why we've changed how we're going to be doing business. Okay? So some of the releases will be July 24th. When?
July 24th.
July 24th, we're going to see some releases. The first form that is going to be released is the BCA form, Broker Compensation Advisory. Now, if you're members of the California Association of Realtors, you can pull this information. Okay? You can pull this information. What is the BCA? Okay? Let me get my glasses. Okay? Get these glasses. The one-page form explains how brokers get paid in a transaction. Listing agreements. Paragraph 1 discusses the seller side of the transaction and how payment to a listing broker do not get shared with the buyer broker. That's on the listing agreement. Buyer representation agreement, paragraph number 2, discusses the obligation to have a written compensation agreement with the buyer. Paragraph 3 addresses the way a buyer broker may be paid. The two primary options is the buyer pays directly, the seller pays pertinent to the terms of the purchase agreement, or a single part of the agreement if the seller is being unrepresented. Okay? That's your buyer compensation advisory. All of this is full transparency at the very end, folks. It's to say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, here's how it's broken down. Okay. And if you were here part of the 3-hour class, I went into the conversation of the listing agreement that the seller has the ability to just pay you as the listing agent your commission. That's it. Because the MLS is going to eliminate cooperating compensation. Okay, because concession can be concessions to the buyer for non-allowable or concurring closing costs. Concessions could be requests of repairs. Look, I set aside $10,000. Whatever the buyer wants to do with that $10,000 is perfectly fine. That's all I'm giving. It's a pre-active agreement between the listing agent and the listing agent and the seller. And that could be the only amount, right? And that could be the arsenal of negotiation for the listing agent. This is all the seller is willing to give, you take it or leave it. So now the question here as a buyer's agent is, how do I get more money, right? I don't have an answer. Especially if you're working with BA, that big chain, with very low down payment, right? I don't have an answer as of yet. But I promise you, and I assure you, that we're gonna be okay. Okay, no difference than what we saw in 2008. No difference than what we saw in 2020. And what we're seeing now in 2024. We have to adapt to the new norm. Okay, I'm excited. I'm thrilled. Okay, is it gonna be chaotic? 100%. But we're in it together. That's the key. There's gonna be a lot of questions around this. Get it? But we're in it together. Make sense? Financial and personal information form, BFPI. That's gonna be a new form that's released July 2024. The form helps a buyer agent access the buyer's qualification for the property the buyer wants to purchase. Factors include amount and source of down payment, maximum loan amount, type of finance, whether the buyer currently rents or owns, whether the buyer has experience with property. I don't know what that means, but that's what it says. Or if a buyer is real estate licensed, full transparency. How many work with investors? Right? Part of our responsibility if you work with an investor and that investor is a licensed agent, then they're not practicing, but we have to full disclosure, provide that information. Okay. The next form is the BIPP form, buyer identification of preference and priorities. The BIPP helps the buyer agent know what's important to the buyer, such as price range, number of bedrooms, bath, single story, multi-level, school districts, or if the house is green. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now, a lot of them are going to be very pertinent to the transaction. A lot of them is just additional disclosures, okay? Not all of them are going to be required. Okay, because there's over 300 forms, and not all forms are used on a transaction. Just want to set the tone and the expectations. Make sense? Okay. The new form is the material issue for specific properties. Once a specific property has been identified, this form is used for a buyer to identify issues related to the property that requires attention or further information. The buyer representation and broker compensation. Okay, this is the form that satisfies the obligation to have a written agreement with the buyer. The property to be acquired defaults to a single family home, condo, or mobile home option for a multifamily and any other type. Generally, location for the property, either city or county, needs to be specified. Buyer preference can be specified in paragraph C2 by attaching the buyer identification of preference, priorities, and all that fun stuff. I'm not going to go deep into it because I don't want to confuse the heck out of it. There's a lot of forms, folks. I get it. A lot of changes to a lot of the things that was our traditional way of doing business has changed. We just have to adapt to these new changes. I don't have the answer to all of the questions, okay? I was in Long Beach yesterday, and a lot of the seasoned experienced agents were throwing objections on me. Some I was able to answer and address, Some I had to say, I don't have the answer, because I really don't. We haven't been in that trenches with that specific scenario that I have an answer. Why am I gonna tell you an answer that I don't have an answer to? Because that could change, right? Maybe you have a question?
How will we be able to tell what's required for these transactions? Does it look like the buyer's identification or preference? That's something like we provide when we do.
I am working, yeah, good question. I am working with the offices to provide an updated checklist. If you go to our KW Hub, kwsouthbayhub.com, you're gonna see our checklist. The commercial, the residential, the buyer stuff and all that fun stuff. We are updating that checklist so that way you know and TC, your transaction coordinator, knows what forms to be included for compliance purposes. Because the Department of Real Estate, the DRE, will be cracking down with their investigators and wanting to see if we're in compliance with all of the new changes. So we have to adapt to these new changes. We may be audit, or we may not be audit. I want to play it safe, and I want to protect all of them. Because once the DRE does an investigation, they open up a can of worms. So I want to make sure that we're in compliance. Yes, Steve?
After August 17th, what is our office policy as of the moment? For those of us who have listing agreements, currently on the existing listing agreement, are we gonna have to have them re-signed under the new listing agreement?
Good question. I have the answer.
Not until the VM.
And again, I'm putting this disclaimer, subject to change. All right, so I'm gonna bypass, so one, before I get to that question, the cancellation of buyer representation agreement. So part of the segue when you're working with a buyer, you also have the ability to say, you know what, I cannot continue working with this buyer. All right. Their expectations, they're not being realistic, whatever the case may be, you have the authority as much as they have the ability to cancel the agency relationship that you have with that individual. And there's a form that you must complete to be in alignment, but again, to protect yourself in paperwork. Paper trail is what we say, right? So that's a form that is revised currently on your zip forms. But going to the question that Steve has is, let's say you have a listing right now as we speak. It never goes into escrow. August 17th comes into play, right? And now the question is, do you need to cancel out the listing and use the new form to be in compliance? The answer is no. The answer is no. But what you have to do is called the disclosure and modification to the listing agreement, Form DMLA. So if you have a existing listing right now and it doesn't close prior to August 17th, you're going to add an additional disclaimer that the seller will have to sign to be in compliance with the new rules and regulations. You're not going to cancel the gold listing, it's still going to be an agreement, but you're not going to absorb the modification listing agreement. Because there's language that talks about NAR. There's language that talks about compensation. There's specific language there with everything that's going on that will compel your position to be full transparent and the position as a listing agent.
Is that form currently live right now, the modification?
The form used to modify a listing agreement is in effect, I believe, before July 24th, it says.
Oh, okay, because if we were to take any new listings from this point prior to August 17th, it would probably then be advisable to have it signed simultaneously while taking any new listings.
Well, it says effective before July, so I'm assuming, I haven't checked to see if it's zip forms, but I'm assuming it may be there. If it's not, it's probably going to be there prior to August 17th. For those individual listing agents that have properties on the market, okay? So what it says, it informs the seller that offering compensation through the MLS will be prohibited once NAR proposed settlement is implemented on August 17th or earlier if MLS adopts required changes before. By default, the form automatically reduces the listing broker's compensation by the amount authorized to be offered on the MLS. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, what does that mean? So if you have a 5% listing, right? 2.5 to the listing, 2.5 to the buy side, you have it on the MLS. Remember, they're going to remove 2.5% on the MLS. So now it will compromise the current information that allows full transparency and letting the seller know, now we don't have to pay a commission. Yes and no. Okay, and this is where I need you to sell the value, right? And the importance of why we need buyer agents, because we cannot rely to be the listing agent, right? And on top of it, trying to facilitate buyers, because in the eyes of the buyers, they say, well, why can't I just go directly to the listing agent and get the property? But do you know that that listing agent is probably going to be bombarded with other buyers? Right? And how many people can you go into escrow with? One. Just one. In essence, I don't know if the Department of Justice, DOJ, realized that that sellers transition to buyers. So the buyers are going to be responsible. And the sellers are the ones that open up the can of worms, but they sell their property and buy a property. Did they really think it all out? I don't think they did. But we're in it, and we have to embrace it. So back to the question, Steve, the modification listing agreement, DMLA form. Okay, and that also goes for the buyer representation agreement that we currently have right now. There's also a modification of the buyer representation agreement, DMBR. This form used to modify the buyer representation agreement in effect before July 24th. It informs the buyer that the broker can no longer accept compensation that exceeds the amount specified in the buyer representation agreement. Once NAR settlement is implemented on August 17th or sooner, if restricted earlier, adopt by the MLS broker who enter a buyer representation agreement with the expectation of collecting an overage from the listing broker will have to either modify the compensation terms. And that's Form MT. Let me be crystal clear here, folks. And I'm glad you're here having a conversation. And this goes into the segue of the buyer representation and residential listing agreement bundle online, okay? Yeah, it says that there is a price, right, on the MLS. But what it doesn't say is if you are a member of CAR, okay, it's absolutely free, okay? Absolutely free, okay? All you need is the code Forms 49, okay, when you check out. I've taken this class and it's a great class. It's online, but at the end, when you complete the curriculum, you get a certificate, okay? It's an investment on yourselves, and it has practical scenarios and how to have the conversations with the buyers. Because the buyers are going to be responsible to pay you a compensation. Now, on the buyer representation agreement, it also specifies that if anyone other than the buyer pays compensation, then that credits the buyer from the obligation. Now, again, I want to be crystal clear, right? Because what used to be the norm is not going to be the norm now. If you have a buyer representation agreement, folks, okay, and I know it's dry material, and I know I sound boring as heck, but I know it's going to bring up a lot of questions. If you have a buyer representation agreement for 1%, that you're saying to the buyer, I'm willing to work with you with the understanding that you're going to pay me 1%. and you negotiate with the buyer, excuse me, with the listing agent, and the listing agent is giving you 2.5%. What the new rules and regulations stipulate is you cannot collect the overage that the seller is giving you. You can only collect the 1%. Ouch. Ouch. So how do we combat that to make sure, hold that down, David. How do we combat that to make sure that we collect our full 2.5%, right? Because the seller is already saying, buyer, here, you can have it. But with the new rules in the NAR settlement, that's not gonna be the question. So what you need to do is, you need to do a modification of your buyer representation agreement. And take it off, cross it out, and say, not 1%, but 2.5%. You gotta increase your commission. When you increase your commission, now you're able to collect your full 2.5 from the seller. Make sense? David?
So we can't, when we write that buyer agreement, we can't just say a minimum of this or whatever they're willing to offer.
It doesn't have that option, David. Okay, it has to be either or, a percentage or a flat fee. And if the percentage of the flat fee is more that the seller is paying you, you have to do a modification.
Okay.
In order to simplify the position, but ultimately be able to collect the full commission that the seller is willing to give, then you would have to do a modification of the buyer representation agreement.
And we would do that once we have the offer accepted or the product, when we, like, we see that somebody's offering more than what I've agreed to, or the buyer has agreed to, I would have to do that before or after the offer.
That's a very good question. The question he says, and I'll take back on UC right now. The question is, do we do the modification before or after? Well, it's not going to be on the MLS, right? So how do we know when we have to modify, right? We're going to have to pick up the phone and ask the question to the listing agent, right? Hello, my name is Simon with Keller Williams. I'm inquiring about the property on 123 ABC. Is that property still available? Yes, it is. Do you have any offers? No offers. When is seller considering and reviewing offers? Okay, well, you have to Sunday of this week. Okay. Is there any compensation being paid? Okay. Full transparency, right? That's a question you can ask. Is there compensation being paid? Yeah, the seller is willing to pay 2% commission. Okay.
You're not supposed to say that.
If you have a listing agreement, right, and the listing has 5 tiers, yes, you can. Yeah, because the seller is already letting you know you could. Okay. So the question here is 2%, right? If you have a 1% buyer representation agreement, then you know that you're going to have to modify the buyer representation before you submit the offer. Okay, hold that thought. Okay. The only reason, because you still don't know 100% if your offer is going to be accepted, but you need to, because full transparency, if you check on paragraph G3C of the purchase agreement, or on the purchase agreement, G3 is that, do you have a buyer representation agreement right now, right? Come August 17th, that G3 is probably going to be eliminated because all buyers working with an agent will have to have a buyer representation agreement. Okay, so with that being said, you're going to do a modification to increase the commission. Steve, question.
So the question that I'm having right now is, who will be the enforcer of that? And would it be us now based kind of forecasting here? You know, are we now as listing agents then, in addition to requesting a copy of the purchase agreement, now requiring a copy of the buyer representation agreement, which now shows the buyer's obligation for compensation to their buyer's agent, of which then, if there is compensation being offered from the seller to the buyer's agent, and we now see it's 2% as a commitment that the buyer has to the buyer's agent, and my seller is offering 2.5, do I keep my mouth shut as a listing agent in the sense of that it could profit my seller now? Oh, you could save 0.5% since the obligation that the buyer has, okay, for compensation is 2%. You know, but even so, then who is the enforcer? And how does that get enforced in the sense of, let's use your 1% example, 1% obligation, seller's paying 2.5, it's been negotiated. We open up escrow, okay, and there is no modification having been done. Who's the enforcing agency to be able to say, hey, you're not in, although you're getting paid, you're not in compliance paperwork wise?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The simple answer to it is and it's starting to become in practice where the escrow officer is asking a copy of the buyer representation agreement. Which
They're
is
going to be
not,
the police.
yeah, so you got escrow now requesting copies of your buyer representation agreement. Now, full transparency, right? With the buyer representation agreement, the listing agent now can use that as negotiations to say is, okay, part of the counteroffer, please provide a copy of your buyer representation. I want to see, and I want the seller to see what you have agreed with the buyer,
Or just even part of the paperwork, just like proof of funds and pre-approval.
Now, the question that threw me off yesterday is, okay, so if the listing agent, as part of the negotiations, can ask the buyer agent to provide us with a copy, can we ask the listing agent for a copy of the listing agreement to see what they're being compensated?
You can ask.
Okay. And the answer is you can definitely ask, but there is no language that says they have to. Okay. So it's going to be a very interesting, and my question around this, I don't have an answer as of yet. Because they're still cleaning up these forms, folks. Okay, they're still going to modify, and guess what? December, there's going to be new changes. Okay. So going back to Steve's question, and then I'll fall back on Fred's question, is again going back to the full transparency of the process. Is when you pick up the phone and ask, is there any compensation? Because even on the MLS under concessions, right? And if it says a percentage, that percentage is not your percentage. It's a percentage to the buyer and possibly you. And I mean possibly because you're kind of at the tail end of it. And that could be a very small percentage you're getting in that. Make sense? Ask a lot of questions. Get clarity around that. Because there's going to be a lot of questions. Now, I know we have a slide, but Gov Hutchinson, I believe his last name, will be here at the South Bay Association of Realtors. He's part of the car legal, and he's going to be talking about all of these questions. He's the one, because he's an attorney, throw all those crazy, nasty questions at him. Okay. So going now to Fred. Yes, sir.
I know you used the 1% example, but wouldn't it be common practice now, which should have been the only thing we did include on the buyer representation agreement with the commissioner? So wouldn't it be common practice to put your 2.5%, 3.5%, 3%, because even though the modification brings it up, if we put 3% and they're offering 2.5%, we're okay with the 2.5%. So we don't need to do the the other adjustments. So wouldn't it be advisable to just put 2.5%, 3% on the buyer representation agreement, so that because that's the norm that they're offering.
Yeah. So hold those thoughts. Here's the problem with that. I'm a buyer. You're explaining to me the common practice of what you're going to do to represent me and how I'm responsible to pay you a commission. What if I don't agree to that? One, maybe I don't have the means to pay you 2.5%. Because that could be $20,000.
Right, I mean, in the conversation, because, most times with since we didn't include the commission, my buyers would say, well, this says commission, there's nothing there. You know, I said, yeah, because you don't pay the commission. So same thing as far as the explanation with the buyer, we're going to get that from the seller, if possible, whatever the seller's offering, that's what we're going to get.
Hold that thought, stop for a minute. What if, okay, I'm just going to scenario, what if the listing agent is not offering compensation? And the buyer wants it? Are you gonna steer them away because they're not paying a commission?
That's no.
Right.
Isn't the real solution to this to not, if I represent a buyer, to not worry about any of that? And just agree with the buyer what they're gonna pay me, and I'm just gonna submit all my offers accordingly, and I don't understand why. The whole idea is we're supposed to get away from steering and worrying about what the fee is. Right. So why not just, it doesn't matter if we have a buyer representative, they agree to pay 2.5, and they might not have a pocket. Just make it part of your offer, like, leave it up to the seller to decide whether they want to pay the compensation. And you're negotiating again like you are anyway.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, Sarah, when you're putting your commission in the way of putting, whatever the buyer and seller, that's the point.
Very valid point. Remember, commissions are now gonna be negotiated. Okay, and that tool will determine, you know, what the outcome is, right? It's gonna be no difference in what I believe of request for repair. Because we may agree to it here, but that can be, it change dramatically in the process, even at the very end. Look at what we do now. How many times have we gone in with the 2.5%, but then at the very end, someone dropped the ball and that will keep concession out of it. It happens all day long, right?
Well,
The essence.
I think that's a good example. So if you're already going under contract, knowing not what the inspection report is, or if you're already practicing going under contract, knowing you're gonna renegotiate again anyway, what's the difference now in that scenario, just going ahead and incorporating the fee into the law? Right, just why not be proactive and go, I'm not worried about it, this is the problem. I just think we have a fear in some scenarios, especially when it's multiple law. We have a fear of losing the opportunity to develop necessarily.
There you go. Yeah, it's building that foundation in the structure. This is what my value proposition is. It's why I'm firmly made 2.5%. Hold that thought. Who had a question, Kevin?
It's the back to the concessions thing. So if the seller offers like a flat fee concession, you don't know where that's being allocated.
That's right.
So if that's all you sell later.
Yeah, and the seller could say, here, I'm gonna give $50,000 flat fee as concession, whatever the buyer each do, something like that. And they can get it there and say, that's it, no more negotiation. What do you do? Then how do you offset if the buyer is obligated to pay you 2.5%? He or she or they would have to come in with it. That's simple.
But couldn't you still negotiate that?
Of course, of course.
Say, okay,
Of course.
that concession, but I still need this.
Yeah, I mean, everything is. Right, we could put something on the offer, right, that says, you know, the patio or the jacuzzi stays with the property, right? That's always been the case, you know, common practice. Then,
So a couple things that's up there, just a lot of meetings in the area, your side of it. And one of the things that I think is being missed, because they're starting to bring it up, some offices is, I think Frank kind of said it's a word, the best American word. And Brand might have said, on the buy side, very little, but on the buy side, this industry, all the way, when you guys are talking about submission, they're like a percentage, right? Whatever. Buyers, and I think this is coming, they think it's all, they don't think about it. I can afford to pay you to repair a $10 polygon. I can only afford to pay you $50,000 polygon. I can afford to pay you $5,000 polygon. Right? All depends on the strength of the buyer that they have. So I think that in some of these offices, what I'm hearing is, what is that number? Not presented for me, so for them, it's not presented, that's all I got. And then how do you combat that, going back to that seller, like, it's not, we talked about, like, I don't know. But people want to know, like, if you sign a buyer order with me, I'm an FHA buyer, and I say, hey, Fair, I got $3,500. This is what my parents like. It's not, I can go make them do that. That's gonna be legally, I'm only gonna sign this, because that's all I got.
But to add to that point, and we have to swap it for the sake of guys, and I apologize. But to, you know, if we look at the pros and cons, right? When I say 2.5%, when I say $30,000 you owe me, how does that resonate with the buyer?
$130,000.
I'm just throwing that question, right? You know, I don't have an answer. It's just, you know, sometimes we're gonna have to have that heart-to-heart conversation, okay?
But I guess what Fred was saying, if you're concerned about your commission, go for the highest, but you can always negotiate down with the buyer rather than going back to the seller asking for more. So that's, then you're actually putting more pocket in the buyer's, you know, putting more money in the buyer's pocket, and they'll be happier.
Well, I know there's a lot of questions, and I'm gonna stop now, right? For the sake of time. We're gonna continue having more and more conversations. We're gonna have more classes regarding all of these forms, okay? And best, take advantage of everything that's going on right now. Classes like the South Bay Association of Realtors, the new laws affecting the real estate industry with general membership meeting. That'll be Tuesday, August 6th from 10 to 12 with Doug Hutchinson, Assistant General Counsel for CAR, okay? Take classes, educate yourself, okay? All right, next slide. All right, so upcoming events, just a friendly reminder, KP headshots, which I am, next slide. Contract class this Friday, July 19th, 10:30 to 11:30. Yes, you have to disclose prior reports and repairs. Okay, so we'll have a conversation around that. I believe that was the class that I done, but I have to double check. Okay. Next slide. I think there was a mistake on the class. And a friendly reminder, KW South Bay potluck and picnic. I'm very excited. Last year was such a huge success. I can't wait because I want to play flag football. I'm looking to play flag football with Brandon. Saturday, September 7th from 10 to 1 at the Hickory Park here in the city of Torrance. Bring your family and enjoy the day, outdoor funs. You know, again, it was a huge success. We'd love to see you. Pets are welcome. Children are welcome, your significant others, and obviously we'd love to see you there. Okay, next slide. And that concludes our team meeting. Thank you very much. Appreciate you all. Thank you.